Hello there. The Filthy Casual Fan is back for draft season. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Very Cold Lasagna podcast, your filthy casual place for all the filthy casual takes on the world of sports. I am DylanLasagna. This is episode number 139 of the icy yet spicy podcast that is Very Cold Lasagna. And today, well, we got a good one for you all because, well, some of you may notice that for those of you watching on YouTube or those of you listening to the audio version of the podcast, I am wearing my good old trusty hat that sometimes I like to wear during the summer. But more importantly, this is a hat that I like to wear when it's time. It's that time of year, ladies and gentlemen, when it's draft season. Draft season rolls around and it's time to go scouting. It's time to not just go some sort of scouting. It's time to go filthy casual scouting. Yes, that is right, ladies and gentlemen. The filthy casual fan in me is back, bitches. The filthy casual fan is going to go scouting some NFL draft prospects in this upcoming NFL draft in Kansas City. So I rounded up 6 potential prospects that could make a long-term impact, or maybe not, in the NFL in next week's draft. So that's what we're going to be doing here in this episode of Very Cold Lasagna. So I hope you're all excited about this episode, and I'd like to know your feedback on it, in whether it's on the comments on YouTube or on a message on social media. So before we get started in today's episode, just a little bit of housekeeping per se. I gotta say, having a week off after a crazy WrestleMania week and the crazy NFL season recap month was definitely much needed. I think these last couple of months, and especially the last month or so, was absolutely insane. Just planning everything around this podcast and just everything that's been going on in my life. It's just been very taxing, and I know I don't really like to complain about my and spread my issues here on the show because, well, this show is basically my escape from real life, and I don't really want to unless if it's like something I absolutely need to address to you all, my listeners. It's like this is like my escape from real life. And the last week, I definitely needed a break. I mean, I did put out a new concept, a new trial concept that I wanted to try out called the Raw SmackDown on YouTube. So I hope you guys did check that out. It's been doing pretty well so far. I'm surprised. I just wish that some of you would watch a little bit more throughout the video, but it is what it is. I do appreciate the those of you that watched it. But the week off was definitely much needed. A good mental break. Now, these next a couple months still are going to be slow. So just keep that in mind. There's not really a lot going on in terms of sports. And pro wrestling still is pretty bad. Don't get me wrong about that. Even though I'm still going to keep trying out this new concept called the Raw SmackDown. But hey, just keep that in your expectations that it may be a bit of a dry period here on Very Cold Lasagna. But if something comes up, if there's something I might talk about, I'm gonna do it. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of the housekeeping. And as always, make sure you listen to the show however you can, whether it's on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts. I'll soon be putting up a link tree, a link, so you could there'll be one stop shop of all the links that you could check out. Very Cold Lasagna as well. Rate and review the show if you're listening to this on any audio device that you're listening to Very Cold Lasagna. And if you're watching this on YouTube, leave a like, leave a comment, smash the subscribe button, share this with all your friends, share this with a stranger, share it with anybody. that you can get your hands on. And in terms of upcoming content, I do have a big Filthy Casuals preview of the NFL draft that's going to talk about like the needs for all 32 teams, like their top needs per se. And after that, maybe a recap of sorts and a preview to WWE Backlash in Puerto Rico. So something there's going to at least be some things to talk about in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, that's pretty much that in terms of Very Cold Lasagna. So that being said, grab your Filthy Casual hats on. All you Filthy Casual fans out there, come join me. Come join the circle of life here in Very Cold Lasagna. Join the draft room. Join the war room here in the icy yet spicy fridge as we go scouting for some NFL draft prospects. So welcome to the Filthy Casual War Room here on Very Cold Lasagna. It's icy yet spicy, but we're all casual fans here. So for this iteration of the Filthy Casual scouting, unlike with years past where I focused on 2 different skill positions with a couple different players in them, this time around I decided to shake things up a bit. We got 6 different skill positions with 6 players in the total. One player each in these 6 positions. These positions we have quarterback, running back, receiver. So 3 offense, 3 defense, edge rusher, linebacker, and corner. So we're going to be looking at 6 different positions in this Filthy Casual scouting episode of Very Cold Lasagna. So it's going to pretty much work the same. I look at what they're good at, what my opinion, I'm concerned about as they transition to the NFL, and what is their overall opinion on them. And I'm not necessarily going to give them like, oh, where would they be best drafted, or what's their best fit on a team, like which team would be best suited for them per se, because that's not really my prerogative. Like that's not really my area of expertise. So that being said, let's get into our first candidate, shall we? So obviously this whole NFL draft in many years is the name of the game has been getting that franchise quarterback. And the 2023 draft is definitely no different. You have at least 4 or 5 teams trying to get a quarterback in the top 10, like the Panthers, the Texans, the Colts. I'd say even the Raiders, and maybe even the Lions, maybe. So when you look at some of these quarterbacks in this draft, the one that pretty much stood out to me the most was a quarterback by the name of Bryce Young from Alabama. Bryce Young played under Nick Saban in Alabama. He was a backup behind Mac Jones in his first year in 2020 when they won the national championship in the COVID year. And then when Mac Jones went on to get drafted to the New England Patriots, he took the starting job. He went on to have 2 successful years in Alabama that included winning the Heisman Trophy in 2021. 2022 was kind of a down year because he had injuries, and then his production took a slight dip, but not too deep. But there were some notable things that caused that dip. So that being said, let's take a look at some of the things that I did like about Bryce Young. The thing I liked about Bryce Young when I was looking at his film was that his pocket awareness is really good. When he moves around the pocket, he reads the field pretty nicely, and when he sees the pressure, he does well. He does well to recognize it and escapes it. Now, one of the things that does concern me though is that he kind of takes a little while to get rid of the ball, and he did have some processing issues with defenses due to, well, one of his other concerns, his short height. He's not really that tall, so he's not like that Kyler Murray size, but it kind of did affect him in 2022. So his small size, it made it hard to throw, but his speed, his awareness to escape pressure, at least helped him. It helped him a lot. When it came to his throws, he had a good zip on his short and mid-range throws. His deep balls did come off a little bit slow, and it did lose a little bit of a zip when it eventually did come out. But it was still pretty good nonetheless. He was also smart with the football. He takes pretty much good care of it. And when he did turn the ball over, it was pretty rare. He doesn't really make too many unforced errors. Now, going back to some of those weaknesses with Bryce Young, he is pretty small. He's only about 204 pounds. It's pretty thin. I can get raggy about weight when, well, look at me. I'm pretty big. I'm a big boy. But I mean, quarterbacks in this day and age, it's at least they bulk up a bit. They bulk up a bit. With compared to Bryce Young, he's pretty bulky. He's pretty thin. He's like when you start out with CJ in San Andreas, it's thin, and when he's going up against stronger defensive lines, it can become a concern, and they're taller too. And when you see the fact that he was dealing with the lack of an offensive line, you see that was getting hit pretty frequent, like a little bit when he wasn't getting out of the pocket enough. It was a problem. It was a bit of a problem. And going back, like I said, he had a little bit of too long of a time to get rid of the ball, and he even had some receivers like wide open in the field. So, in my opinion, when you look at Bryce Young, he looks like a really nice quarterback to have as your starter. If you're picking in the top 10, and I imagine he does get picked in the top 10, just depends on who. He presents a good amount of both mobility and football IQ, but his concerns are very glaring, and I see a lot of people have them, especially his small stature. You can get away with that in college, but in the NFL, it's gonna really hurt him in a hurry, especially if he doesn't have an offensive line to protect him. And a good amount of teams don't have that, a good offensive line. So him being that short, not Kyler Murray short, but like pretty short and pretty light, like almost like WWE cruiserweight light, at 204 pounds. But there's still time for him to get some muscle mass on. So I do imagine that Bryce Young will get picked in the top 10 by a quarterback that does by a team that does need a quarterback. I just hope that at some point, like I said, he will bulk up some, and then the team that drafts him gets an offensive line. They use that draft to build around him, especially at the offensive line at all positions, because he kind of needs that offensive line to play up to his strengths. Like, read defense as well. Get the deep ball going. Work on the simple fundamentals, because whatever team Bryce Young goes to, it's gonna be interesting how he does. It really is, especially with some of the deficiencies that he has. Considering other prospects like Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, and C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young is really an interesting case, especially with his small stature. But hey, you can prove me wrong, especially with this mobility and with his football acumen. But those only go so far, especially with how small you really are. The next prospect that we're going to be looking at and trying to scout the best way we can is going to the running back position. And this running back that we're going to be looking at is by the name of Bijan Robinson. So Robinson comes from the University of Texas, and man, he really dominated. He really dominated at his school. He was a multi-skilled running back who strung together record-breaking performances. And when he left college, he finished 4th in all-time rushing yards. And he was named an All-American. So he's pretty much like, for those of you who remember in WWE, Jack Swagger. Jake Hager in AEW. So when you look at Bijan Robinson, he's a big dude. He's 6 foot, 220 pounds, and his size it really helps him get around and get through defenders and in the line and outside of it, and helps him break through tackles. Robinson is like that running back that you really would like. Sure, he like bulldozes through the line as a running back, but he also strategically waits for the direct snap. He allows for the time until the ball gets snapped to see any gaping holes that there can be. And if there is a gaping hole, he's going to attack it. He's going for the direct point of attack. And another thing that I liked about Bijan Robinson is that he has really good elusiveness and speed that can lead to a lot of breakaway touchdowns. And another thing that I did like about him as a pass catcher, he has good hands. Very clean with the ball. So there's a lot of good things that if a team that is going to draft a running back, Bijan Robinson is one of those top backs. Now, there are some things that are a little bit concerning that Robinson does have to clean up. And that one of those things is that he does tend to run straight forward. Like how I mentioned that when he tends to bull rush in straight into the defensive line. Yeah, he does tend to run straight forward rather than how some running backs when they're running into the line, they run, but they put the over their pads. But John Robinson runs straight in, but he doesn't run with that much power, and running straight forward in the NFL can lead to negative plays or big hits that could get him injured. So other than that, Bijan Robinson's a really good back. He just needs to work on those fundamentals to become an even better NFL running back in the long run. So overall for Bijan Robinson, aside from a season-ending elbow injury late in 2021, he's one of the best balanced players in this draft, at least on the offensive side of the ball. He may be a large back, but he has great speed and flexibility, both inside and outside of tackles, that can really damage defenses in a hurry. And he's a pretty good receiving option that would get short and long run. He would run short and long routes at the University of Texas. And if a quarterback needs him to make a big leap, like a big catch leap, he actually shown it. He can make a vertical jump, just like that. He can catch the ball in the air. So he does have that one area to work on, but it's pretty fixable, as I mentioned. But whichever teams drafts him in the draft, I'm not a little too keen on him being first round pick. But a team that wants to get Bijan Robinson will be getting a good get to their offense. Especially considering that, a lot of the running backs nowadays in the NFL are, not that great. But Bijan Robinson, I'd say, is a good multi-use back in different situations. We wrap up our offensive portion of the Filthy Casual Scouting episode of Very Cold Lasagna by taking a look at the receiver position. And we look at a receiver from the University of Tennessee, Jalen Hyatt. So Hyatt is a 4-time high school state champion from Southern Carolina. And Hyatt is a speedy receiver in his 3 years at the University of Tennessee. And he had his breakout junior campaign in 2022. So when you look at Jalen Hyatt, when you see his film, he looks pretty good. He looks pretty fast. He looks efficient, and that's perhaps his biggest strength. His speed is his game. What is that saying that Sonic the Hedgehog always has? Sonic the name, speed is his game. And that's basically Jalen Hyatt. His speed is his game. Acceleration at the snap And especially downfield, he really accelerates. And that creates big problems for opposing defense. And that could certainly create a lot of issues for defensive coordinators trying to scheme against him. He's also a good route runner as well, and that allows him to burst through open and tight coverage. But the problem with Jalin Hyatt is that he's only had one good, meaningful year. Obviously, that year being 2022. And that might not translate well to the NFL. Just look at like other players that had like 1 year wonders in college football, and that pretty much being their claim to fame in the NFL. Not a lot of success stories there. With Jalin Hyatt, he's tall, but just like with Bryce Young, he's skinny. Unlike with Bryce Young, actually, Jalin Hyatt is too skinny, and that could lead to some injury concerns against bigger cornerbacks, bigger linebackers, bigger defenders in general. So just like with Bryce Young, he's got to bulk up. He has to bulk up some. And even though he is a good route runner, he has his top speed. He has pretty solid football IQ. His skills after the catch are honestly not that great on film. He does have okay evasiveness. He also has okay vision, but it's honestly not exactly that good, especially in short and mid-range situations. So it's like he's trying to like get around the tackler, but it's just like he kind of gives up. He kind of gives up at the point of trying to avoid them. So what I'm trying to say about Jalin Hyatt is that he may look like a really good receiver on film, but I'm not saying that he shouldn't get drafted or just like should get drafted on like day 1 or 2. I feel like he just has a lot of work to be done. He looks like a really good receiver because it has a lot to do with his speed. Yes, he's as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog, maybe not as fast as Sonic the Hedgehog. He can run routes really well, but there's just a lot to be desired. I think that a team can draft him as a project receiver, so they can continue to develop him. They can continue to work on honing his skills, but expecting him to be a top receiver like right out of the gate, like a number 1, maybe even a number 2, I think that's asking for too much because he's just too raw. He's only had 1 year of like full starting experience. That if you draft him number 1 and expect him to be number 1, that's not gonna work, man. It really isn't. So Jalin Hyatt should be considered as a project receiver for teams that are looking for help at the receiver position. So now we transition over to the defensive side of the ball as we take a look at the position that some people are more commonly associated with, and that is the edge rusher position, or some people like to call it the defensive end. And that is a position that is kind of valued in this draft. And a lot of people will definitely be picking. And one of these prospects that I am pretty interested in is by the name of Will Anderson. So Will Anderson comes from the national champion Alabama Crimson Tide, just like Bryce Young. He was an immediate impact player from the get-go. And being a 3-year starter, he can close in on quarterbacks right away with the array of moves. And he has shown teams in his 3 years that he is ready to go. So looking at some of his, looking at the film that I watched, looking at some of his strengths, looking at some of his concerns, some of the things that really stood out to me is that he is very quick. He is very quick at the point of attack. So once the ball snaps, he's like, boom. He's ready to attack the opposing offensive lineman. He does bull rush to the court, try to bull rush to the quarterback, but there are a lot of the times he still tries to play it smart. he takes these short yet strong steps to try to get around offensive linemen. So he's not like a lot of these defensive ends. They'll just like, oh, Ole, let's go try to attack right away. He does bull rush, but he takes a little bit of a stutter step to take short yet powerful steps to try to evade and get around offensive linemen. He's also very physical to attack the edge, so he tries to use his hands a lot. He doesn't try to get too handsy though, to avoid penalties. So he uses lots of hand wipes and counter moves against offensive linemen to get around them. So in all, it's like Will Anderson. What I like about him, he's very physical, but also at the same time very considerate to not get a penalty. But the thing with Will Anderson is like, in short coverage and in run defense, is that he missed a good amount of tackles, because the way he would tackle sometimes is that he would have a habit to just like yeet. He would yeet at players in attempts to make tackles. Like he would like jump from his back foot and then just like try to lunge at them. It's like if you see a player, just try to like go at him, like not just like lunge at him, just try to run towards them and then just bear hug him. Try to bear hug him. And the other thing that I noticed was that he doesn't really have a move, like a signature move, to try to win battles on the edge. Sure, he has these hand wipes and stuff, but it's like, you know, trying to establish yourself with your raw physical power can only get you so far. You have to establish a little bit more strategies kind of like a finishing move, like in professional wrestling. You gotta establish a finishing move on the edge to truly win battles, especially in the NFL. You gotta have that signature move to beat your opponent, which is the offensive lineman for Will Anderson. So he's got to find that finishing move to win the battle, get to the quarterback, get those sacks, get those negative plays on the offense, so he can help his team on defense. So, I mean, I still like Will Anderson. I still think he's one of the top draft prospects for good reason. He could end up being drafted in the first round because he was a very efficient player in the pass rush with his speedy power moves. And even though he does bull rush, he balances that out with smart start and stop power steps. So, like I said, he's not one of those guys that just go heads on, like in the battle, and tries to go after the quarterback. No, he takes a little bit of his time and tries to decide like what's the best move to evade the offensive lineman. So for Will Anderson, I mean, there's still a lot of areas for improvement, like getting that signature move to win on the outside. Fix his form with tackling, but with the right coaching and discipline, these are easily fixable. So wherever he goes, he'll be a very strong addition to a team seeking a lot of improvement in the defensive trenches. So I do like Will Anderson a lot when it comes to the defensive side of the ball. We move from the defensive line to a little bit of the hybrid, the middle portion of it, and that is linebacker. We're going to be taking a look at a linebacker that initially started out as an edge rusher, but has moved over to the linebacker spot, and that is a guy by the name of Drew Sanders. So for Drew Sanders, he initially started out as an edge rusher in his first 2 years at Alabama. So he was kind of a national champion, but he transferred over to the University of Arkansas, and that's where he made his move to linebacker, where when we watched him on film, he really showcased his abilities, especially his athletic abilities, and he would really shine in that new position, both trying to pass rush and in coverage. So that's where things get really interesting for Mr. Sanders. So when you look at some of the things that to like about Drew Sanders, Obviously, it's his flexibility at multiple defensive positions. So it definitely helps that he was a previous edge rusher. So you already get that experience by being on the defensive line, getting after the quarterback. But now he has the edge of being a cover man in short spurts. So yeah, you could play on the edge, and you can play in like middle coverage as well. And when he's playing in middle coverage as a linebacker, he's like locked in. He does a good job of anticipating what the quarterback will do, and in the middle of the field, if the receiver is there, he closes in on them really quick. So in coverage, he's pretty good. And when he's trying to get around blocks as a pass rusher, he has good hands. He's pretty good at hand fighting as well. Some of the things that I think that Drew Sanders can work on, though, is that his skills as a run defender, they could use work, because in the last like couple of games that he's had, he often allowed running backs to go past him on a broken tackle. Like he would, like when people were missing tackles, he would miss them too. So Will Anderson as a run defender, it's like he's got to find a way to work on shutting down the running back. So yeah, it definitely needs some work. And I do feel like a lot of that reason why he couldn't bring down the running back was that, well, he didn't really have a lot of, maybe he didn't have enough size. He didn't really have a lot of mass. So maybe he should bulk up a little bit before whatever team he gets drafted to, before training camp, so he can go up against not just running backs, physical running backs, but also bigger and more physical offensive linemen in the NFL. And this could be a minor thing, but maybe not. He's also had one full season as a starter in Arkansas. So I feel like it's another one of those cases where he's had one breakout season in college, and then it could lead to either success in the NFL or another flop. So teams definitely have to be careful here when looking at the pros and cons of Drew Sanders. Yeah, there's upside, but there's also a downside as well, because he's only had one full season. So overall, I mean, it's not to knock Drew Sanders at all, but he does have a little bit of upside. He's a defensive player that could be a coordinator's gift with the right coaching, of course, and the right team, the right culture. So even though he's only had one meaningful season, his athleticism and smarts as an edge rusher were still productive. And it definitely helped him too when he moved to linebacker. And that just skyrocketed his stock even higher. So for his size, he can move really fast in short man-to-man coverage against passing backs and tight ends, while also covering the interior spread out defense. I think he'll still have some work to do on being a better run defender because of his body mass. I think he does have to get a little bit of muscle in there, and obviously retooling some of the fundamentals in tackling and coverage. But I do think that Sanders could be either a good day 2 or day 3 flyer. But either way, teams will have fun utilizing his balanced experience of being an edge rusher and a coverage linebacker. So either way, it could be a good win for whichever team that drafts him. So our last defensive player and our final player that we're going to be looking at in our Filthy Casual Scouting episode here is a player by the name of Christian Gonzalez of Oregon. Now, initially with Christian Gonzalez, he actually started out in the University of Colorado. Then he transferred over to the University of Oregon, playing for the Ducks. But either way, Christian Gonzalez has looked like a pretty efficient defender. He's earned all Pac-12 honors, and a lot of it has to do with his nice blend of physicality, speed, and intelligence. So he has that football smarts to match his physicality. So, and watching him on film, he has validated that. So when you see Christian Gonzalez on tape, some of the things that you notice right away is that he is very quick. He has quick feet, quick speed. He is quick to turn his hips to keep up in pretty much any coverage, whether it's man-to-man, spread out, in other words, zone coverage. You notice that he's pretty much on his game, like just like that. He also has really good ball skills. Like he'll know when to like break up passes, like including like his timing is like pretty good. Like when he's like in the end zone, like with another trying to defend another player man to man, and he notices that the ball is about to be caught by this guy. He at the very last moment he swipes it away. He just like swipes it away from the guy. So it's like his like anticipation for like where the ball's gonna be. It's like it's actually surprisingly good. It is like really good. He's also a very good disciplined tackler. He only missed about, I think, 3 tackles in his college career. So yeah, he's a very smart guy. So for as good as he is, obviously there's still some things that teams should be a little bit wary of. He does sometimes lapse in coverage. He loses his assignment at times. He's a little bit slow to transition after the initial snap and after initially covering his guy. So in other words, going from one area to the next, is sometimes that he needs to work on. And when he's after the snap, when he's going to cover his assignment, he's not much of a backpedaler. He prefers to challenge his receiver at the snap with hand fighting. Now, yeah, hand fighting is good and all, but when your receiver is trying to go to distance with you, you got to be like Christian Gonzalez has to be ready to go to distance with them as well. Like hand fighting, can't be the only resort for him. He's got to learn how to backpedal. So overall, I mean, defensively, just like with Will Anderson, I like Christian Gonzalez. I think some of the defensive players in this draft that I've seen, Christian Gonzalez really stood out to me. Now I know offense is the name of the game in today's NFL, but I think Gonzalez can be a really big impact player for whichever team drafts him because he can be a really tough cookie for some of these receivers. Obviously, maybe not right away, but I think in the long run. He has great size from top down, and it's balanced out with the weight that he has needed to duel with physical receivers. He has really good speed and anticipation of where the ball is going to be. I just think that he needs to fix up on the simple things like transitions and separation between routes. But otherwise, I think that he's one of the most pro-ready defenders in this draft that can help a team right away. So that is it for this Filthy Casual scouting report of our 2023 NFL draft. We covered 6 prospects at 6 different positions. So we covered Bryce Young, Jalen Hyatt, B. John Robinson, Christian Gonzalez, Drew Sanders, and Will Anderson. So if you know any of these people, I'd like to know your thoughts on these players, these prospects heading into the NFL draft next week. So I'd like to get your thoughts on them and your thoughts on my scouting of these players in the comments below on YouTube, or send me your thoughts in a message on Twitter or Instagram at Cold Lasagna. But anyway, that's it for this episode number 139 of this icy yet spicy podcast. I am your host, DylanLasagna. Thank you for tuning into another rendition of Very Cold Lasagna. And keep that lasagna very cold in the fridge with your takes on the world of sports. And until next time, peace out.